Okay, let's jump back into Pseudo effects and take a look at how we can add advanced features to make these effects even more powerful and just more user-friendly for yourself or whoever might be using the preset. The first thing we want to take a look at is Wiggle Pro. So this will be an advanced version of our Wiggle Basic. Make sure that as you're making presets and you're naming them, you want to make sure that you add Pro to all your presets. Make it feel more professional, more polished, and it's just going to really do a lot for you inside of After Effects. The first parameter we'll look at is position. So if we twirl down position, we can see that we have position frequency and amplitude, just like we did before. But we also have a drop down here so we can switch it from XY, X only, and Y only. So let's go ahead and turn up our frequency and our amplitude, and we'll crank it up so we can really see it. And just come out here 3 seconds. If we hit RAM preview, nothing. But if we change the drop down to XY, obviously it does as we would expect. And then if we switch this to Y only, we can get it moving horizontally, and then Y only, we get it moving vertically. So let's take a look at how we set up the expression to do that, because these drop down boxes are really nice. You can actually run different versions of your expression based off this drop down. So let's come down to the circle and take a look at position. We'll twirl this open and move this out of the way. So the first part of our expression here, we're defining what our wiggle is. And so we're looking at, from Wiggle Pro, we're looking at the position frequency, and we're also looking at, so comma, and then Wiggle Pro, the position amplitude. So this is basically our Wiggle Basic expression. And then down here, we start taking a look at how can we control it, different varieties of it, using this drop down up here. So this says right here, if effect Wiggle Pro position, Wiggle Pro is our effect, position is the name of the drop down, equals 1. So position 1 is right here, it's off. If we are in that position, we're going to go value 0, comma value 1. So we're just going to use the X and Y value. So nothing will happen. We're going to use the values that are here. If we come down to the next one, if it's in position 2, XY, then we're going to wiggle the X value and we're going to wiggle the Y value. And then so on, same thing down here. Here, if we are in position 3, so let's come up here to position 3, that's X only. Take a look at how the expression changes here. We're going to wiggle value 0, which is the X value, and then we have value 1. So the Y value will remain whatever we have inputted here. And then for the last one, position 4, we just switch it around. So we have value 0, so we're going to use the X value, whatever that is, and then we're going to wiggle the Y value only. Okay, so makes it really nice. We can have 4 variations of this one expression. Now, one thing I will point out, now if we jump over to scale, let's take a look at scale. So scale is set up exactly the same way, okay? And if we take a look at the expressions, the same thing, except for where it says position, we have the word scale. So set up the same. Rotation, let's take a look at rotation. Rotation's a little bit different because I just have on or off. Now I could have put a checkbox here, but just to maintain consistency within the expression, I decided to make it a drop down, so we can just turn it on and off. So this one looks a little bit different. This first part says if Wiggle Pro rotation, right here, Wiggle Pro rotation is in position 2. So this is position 1. It's not going to do anything. So it's saying if it's in position 2, then I want it to wiggle the rotation, right, using this frequency and amplitude. If it is not in position 2, so else we want it to just have this rotation here. Okay, so just a little bit more simple, just because we only have two options. It's either going to be on or off. And like I said, we could have used a checkbox, which we'll take a look at checkboxes in the next preset, but I wanted it just to stay consistent throughout. And then opacity here is set up the same way. It's either on or off. Okay, so hopefully that helps you out in using these drop downs. They're really powerful, and you can do a lot of great things as far as running different versions of expressions based on the drop down. One thing I will point out is if you have multiple parameters like this that use frequency and amplitude, or any other parameter that might be the same, you want to make sure that you are very descriptive with them. So here we have position frequency and position amplitude, and then scale frequency, scale amplitude, and so on. If this just said frequency and amplitude like this, if it looked like this, to where I had frequency and amplitude only for each group, then we have a problem, because in After Effects it would not see all these different frequencies and amplitudes as separate parameters. Okay, they need to have their own name. So that's why I call it position frequency, position amplitude, and so on. So this can be called position because there are no other parameters called position. Now the group here, so these are set up in groups, which is a great way to organize your presets. This group name position, After Effects ignores that. So this position right here is just the group name, and like I said, After Effects ignores that name, okay, because there is no parameter tied to it. We can't actually address that data right there because there really isn't any. So just be aware that your groups can have any name and they're not going to conflict with anything, but you should make sure that you do not name it this way, right? Because we have multiple frequencies and amplitudes. We want to make sure that they have unique names like these over here. Let's take a look at another preset. This one is called Bounce Pro. The expression from this I did not write. This came from Gray Machine. We have a good bounce expression, and this expression here will give you nice secondary animation. So let's jump over to After Effects and take a look at how it works. So for this preset to work, we have to set a couple keyframes. So I'm going to set one for position. We'll come out here to 10 frames, and we'll just move our circle over. We'll go up here to position. We have to enable it, and let's go ahead and do a RAM preview just to see what happens. So we can see that it comes in to our final position and then bounces. And we have our amplitude, so we can keep this going. And then we have our frequency. I'm going to take that back down to 0.1. Our frequency, we can obviously crank that up, and that might be a little bit high. Okay, and then we have decay. So how fast is it going to stop bouncing? So if we put maybe 10 in there, and it happens pretty fast. So I'm going to reset that. I'll enable it. One thing to be aware of with this preset is if we come in here and apply an easy ease, and I'm actually going to go into the curve editor, and if we make this ease in the position and do a RAM preview, it doesn't do anything because it's looking at the incoming velocity into this keyframe, into our last keyframe. So since we're easing in, it doesn't have any velocity, and so it doesn't do anything. So you want to make sure that when you use this preset that the speed maintains a higher value. So keeping it linear actually works out pretty well. Okay, so let's take a look at the expression for this. So we'll scroll down position, and we'll take a look at this expression here. So this is written a little bit differently. It's saying to try to run this expression. So we have try at the beginning here, and it's saying try to do this. And all of this is the code that I got from Gray Machine, right? And let's see, so this doesn't get cut off. Let's raise this up a little bit. All right, so this is everything that I got from Gray Machine's website, we're going to try and run this expression. All I did was at the beginning here for amplitude is I changed the value with my slider, and then same with frequency. Did the same thing, and then the same with decay. So we're going to try this, and if we can't, we're going to catch any errors that occur. So if it can't run this because of this button here, so that button is right here. So if effect bounce pro position is equal to 1, we're going to do this. Now selected is 1, so that enables it. If it's unchecked, that is equal to 0. Okay, so if it's equal to 0, we're going to catch the error, and we're just going to run our position values here. Okay, so pretty simple, and that's how you can utilize the checkboxes, is setting up expressions to run if it's a 1, and then if it's a 0, it won't do anything. Okay. If we look at scale and rotation, they are built the same, so this is really easy to modify for the other values. If we go down to scale and take a look at the expression here, we have the exact same setup except for scale. Okay, so pretty simple to modify this. And then if we go into rotation, we have the exact same thing for rotation. And finally, I have one more preset for you to check out. So this might come in handy for you to download as well, so you can kind of get a feel for pseudo effects. This one is called Loop Light. This is a light version of another preset I have called Loop Pro. So of course, you got to have that Pro part of the name in there, but this one is breaking my naming structure a little bit by going light. So let's take a look at how Loop Light is a little bit different than Wiggle. So if we take a look up here, initially it looks pretty much the same. We have frequency and amplitude, but then we also have loop time in seconds. So I'm going to come out here to 3 seconds, and I'm going to change my loop time to 3, and I'm going to change the drop down. I'll change it to X only, and let's set the end of our work area and do a ramp preview. We've got to add some frequency and amplitude to this. So let's increase the amplitude. The nice thing about this preset here is it obviously is a wiggle, but it'll loop, and you can specify how much time that it takes to loop. So right now it's on 3 seconds. So we're going to get a perfect loop within that 3 seconds. And this comes in handy when you're creating animated GIFs and you want them to loop. So you can do that pretty nice. And obviously it has the same controls as the other wiggle that I have. Okay, but this one obviously has the loop time. So it makes it kind of nice. And you have all the same options. So we have position, scale, rotation, and opacity. And you can download this pack of presets to check out the code and see how everything's linked up, but it's very similar to the Wiggle Pro, not a whole lot different. Let's take a look at one disadvantage with pseudo effects is the fact that if I look at the expressions, we have all these expressions being applied to these different properties. And if I only want it to be applied to position, if I only want to loop the position wiggle, then I still have all this other code down here that has to be analyzed on every frame. So sometimes this can get a little bit heavy if you only need a small piece of the preset. So just be aware of that. I haven't run into too many problems, but as these things get bigger and bigger, you can notice some slowdowns with it. The Pro version of this looks like this. So here, it's built a little bit differently. We can loop the position, scale, rotation, opacity just by clicking the checkboxes. And I have individual controls for every single parameter, but I also have master controls. So you can use these master controls so that you have the same master frequency and amplitude for every one of your parameters, or you can break that and you can have individual parameters for each one of them.
okay, as far as frequency and amplitude and loop time. But it's nice to have a set of master controls. You also have different types of loop types in here. So Loop Pro will wiggle it. You can do continuous, ping pong, repeat, and standard. Makes it kind of nice, and obviously you have the different directions as well. This one also has a posterized time. So let's just take a look at position really quick at what that looks like. And let's come out here to 3 seconds. Close our workspace, and I'm going to change the master loop time to 3. We'll do a RAM preview. Let's go ahead and increase the frequency a bit. So if we go to posterize master, we can set this like 5. Oh, and we have to turn it on, so we have to click posterize. And so this is going to say that we're only going to see the position change 5 frames per second. Okay, but if we wanted a different loop time and frequency and amplitude for position, we could uncheck master frequency and amplitude, and then we could change it down here. You can see that it's changed back, and we'll uncheck that. So it gives you a lot of control in here for the Pro version. It took a little bit of tweaking to get it the way I want it, but it does come in handy to help automate some of these wiggles, especially when you're trying to do it within a certain amount of time to get those loops perfect. So one last thing I want to point out about saving presets like we did in the first video is that if you want to share this preset with somebody that is using CS6, I'm using 2018 version of After Effects. So in order for me to save it so somebody can use it in CS6, I do not want to go to animation and save the animation preset like we did in the first video. Not yet. I first need to go to File and Save As, and I need to save it backwards. Okay, so I'm going to open up multiple versions of After Effects and walk it all the way back to a version CS6 of this project file. Once you have a version CS6 of this project file, then we can create the animation preset just like we did in the first video. So I just want to point that out, that even though you're in a newer version of After Effects, you can still share it with people using older versions. Usually make sure you first save your project file to the version of After Effects you want the preset to be made for. So all my presets that I'm going to upload from this project are CS6 and above compatible. So the only thing in CS6 is you may see right here where it says Wiggle Pro, it may say that it's missing an effect. That's just a cosmetics thing. It still works just fine. Just one little limitation to be aware of. So like I said, you can download this preset pack. I'll have a link in the description below. I hope you found this useful, and if you create anything cool, shoot it our way and we'd be happy to share it with everybody. Thanks for watching.